Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Divine Awakenings. This is episode 15 now, and I'm so excited to have another beautiful soul on this podcast where they are going to share their journey to their purpose, their reason for being here. And it's really exciting for me to be able to bring beautiful souls on. And Gayatri, I am very honored to have you here today. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's an honor, it really is. And you are my teacher's teacher. And so we've only recently met at an event a couple of weeks ago. And I knew I was coming to the event in Brighton, and I was doing my normal thing. And I just got this idea to say, oh, I wonder if I'll get Gayatri on my YouTube channel. And we hadn't actually physically met. I knew of you through my teacher, Amy. And yeah, in that meditation, all of these thoughts coming up saying, oh my God, how are you going to do this? How are you going to ask? You don't even know her. And in the meditation, I literally just said, you know what? If it's meant to be, it will happen, it will align. And lo and behold, we had a little mini break in the meditation, and you just walked straight to me. And it was like the choiceless choice. It was like God was like, okay, here we go. What are you going to do? Are you going to just shrink, or are you going to actually say yes and open up and just take yourself out your comfort zone? Because we can all have this voice in our head that tells us all of the stories why not to expand or grow. And I know you're really passionate about sharing the wisdom around all of that. And you've got many accolades. You've got a master's degree in positive psychology. You've done a PhD and around unconditional love. Is that right? It's
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I can't wait to dive into, and just understanding how you're bringing the science and the spiritual together and weaving that in to help people, find the strength within them with the tools that are available, and having something really clear to know it's not just one way, it's both.
Mm.
And yeah, I'd love to dive into all of that. But one of the things I'd really like to open up with is, your connection, to the divine, to the creator God. This God's used, it can be, everybody uses the word differently, and whatever feels right is right for them. But how would you, based on all of your research and your studies over the time, what's your conclusion about what God is, or the divine?
Hey, yeah. Well, I feel like conclusion might be too answered, if you see what I mean. Because I feel like the thing that we call the divine, or the thing that we call God, is so kind of ineffable and unknowable, kind of almost by definition. But the closest that I can come to talking about it really is the isness behind creation, that I feel is benevolent and potentially either made of unconditional love, or that when we access it, I think our human consciousness is so limited compared to the infinite resplendent consciousness of whatever it is that we call that divine. I feel like we probably access it through all these different shapes and archetypes and images and stories and names and flavors. But that there's this kind of oneness of kind of miraculous unconditional love and presence and peace and bliss and joy that's behind that. And what I think is incredible is how infinite and limitless and impersonal that is, but then how personally we can come into connection with that. And how in some ways I think we are each made of that, like that is the substance of everything. And so each of us is like a drop of God, a drop of divinity that's supposed to become uniquely ourselves. And so it's almost like our individual journey is a small drop of the divine waking up and realizing itself, even though at the same time there's this vastness of divine that is already realized and doesn't require anything because there is no deficit. um, it's so funny because you end up talking in paradoxes and you sound like you don't make any sense, but it's the isness beyond logic in some ways.
Yeah. And I think it's a certain, your language changes, doesn't it? The way you speak, the more you kind of become conscious, the more, I don't even want to say the more spiritual you become, I would say more aware and more conscious you
Mm,
become of yourself, and this part of you that is bigger than you. Because I've
mm.
noticed that, and I have to tailor my language to certain people depending on level of consciousness. And there's no right or wrong, because I'll look at you and go, what you're saying. So have you found that as well?
Yeah, I guess so. I think for me, I started a spiritual path when I was really young, and I was going to a very religious primary school. And so my mom used to say to me, "You've got to kind of be a bit Harry Potter about this, like, because not everyone's going to be able to understand what you're talking about. And so sometimes you just have to pretend to be just a physical person, and because and talk that talk, even though at home we're practicing in a completely different way." Yeah, but I think as I've gotten older, and part of why I wanted to study things scientifically is because one part of my family is very spiritual and the other part is very scientific and not into spirituality at all. And for me, I kind of think that these parts of my family who I adore, they're not living in different universes, but they are. Like, they're the way they engage with reality is as if they're living in different universes, but actually they're living in the same universe. And one half engages with that universe through spirituality and the other half through science. So as I've gone and studied the scientific part, I feel like it's kind of starting to give me the language to be able to stay speaking what my truth is, to all kinds of different people. It feels like it's brought a little bit more harmony and a little bit more congruence in that way, which has been really lovely, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And so I love that your mum was saying be a bit Harry Potter about it. That's a really good way of looking at it. I should use that for my daughter, to be fair. So, and
Your daughter?
she's 8.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly how old I was when I was starting
Yeah,
healing and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
she's always talking to me, and we'll be walking to school. She's like, Mum, let's talk about God. She'll just start saying stuff like that. And so, yeah. Oh, that's great. And so your mum's been always on this path as well. And so you work closely together in your kind of like events and working as part of your practices and your sanghas that you do as well.
Yeah, yeah. So she started her path when I was about 2, and prior to that she was a materialist. Like, she wouldn't have believed in anything beyond what you could measure either. So she went through a really difficult time in her life. She got physically sick, she got bronchitis, she and my dad separated, and she was also depressed from that as well. And she had a healing out of desperation because normal medicine wasn't working for her illness. And she was a barrister, so she needed her voice, but she had this chronic bronchitis for months and months and months. And so she had a healing out of desperation, and all of this energy left through her heart chakra. And what I find really interesting when she tells this story is that a lot of grief left her heart chakra. And that kind of, you could kind of imagine, you're like going through a separation and an illness and all these things, you can kind of see why that would be. But also all this repressed joy left her heart chakra about, having been a good girl in all these ways and ticked all the boxes, but kind of squished herself to do it. And all of this stuff came out. And then within 2 days, the bronchitis was gone. She was not feeling depressed anymore. And she was like, what was that? That's incredible. I have to learn everything there is to know about that. And I was really young. And so she started learning all these spiritual things and energy healing. And we'd have shaman and, mystics that she would invite from other countries to come and teach a class. And she'd get groups of her friends together, but then they'd be at our dinner table. And so as a kid, getting to be there for all of that, and witness her kind of transformation was really kind of powerful. Yeah, quite amazing and quite courageous, I think, to step out, like when you're a lawyer and you've got this real world credibility, and then to step out of that. I don't know what the path has been like for you in that respect, but people are having these really courageous experiences.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like it's brave. It is a path of, like, in the tarot, it's the strength card, isn't it? You know, that's how I see it, when we, you know, really take that action, and yeah, finding that within us. And so for you, thank you for sharing that, because Shakti Durga is your mum, and that's obviously, she was at the event, and you're amazing together. It's so great to see you collaborating together. So for you, what would you say because obviously you've been around this like all of your life, really. It's never been separate, really. It's just part of who you are. It's your, you know, surroundings as a kid growing up. So the divine awakening was probably always there within you, but has there been anything like that stood out as a key divine awakening? You might have had many, but
yeah, there's been a couple that have stood out. Quite a few things. One time when I was quite young, when I was about 8 or 9, I had whooping cough, and quite a lot was going on in my family at that time. There was quite a lot of conflict between the different parts of my family, and extended family were kind of getting involved, and it was a very stressful time. And spirituality was really the thing that I cleaved to kind of keep me okay in all of that. It felt like that was a refuge, and it was a place of love and safety, where it seemed like there was a lot of chaos and upheaval and things. And I remember at that time, mom was she was practicing this particular healing technique, and she had a friend who was an incredible mystic, and they would practice together so that they would test their clairvoyance. So they would often see one client together, and they would both see the same things clairvoyantly. And that's quite handy when you're learning this, you know, other language of intuition, to kind of test it out and make sure you're on the right track. Anyway, so I had whooping cough, and so mom asked her friend to give me a healing, you know, thinking maybe it's good that it's not her mom always giving her healings, you know, to get someone else to do it as well. And so mom's friend gave me this healing, and they put crystals around my chair. And usually for an adult, those crystals wouldn't shoot you into a different dimension, but I was quite young, and I'd been begging to have a full crystal dreaming experience, which is where you kind of you lie in a crystal matrix and you get shot into another dimension. And I'd known the master who taught mom that, you know, since I was like 4, and I'd been begging him, please can I? He said, no, the age is 18, you can't have one. Anyway, this day I sit in this thing, and there's just these 4 crystals around, and we start the healing, and I get kind of shut into this place where which is the normal place you end up in a crystal dreaming, but I didn't know that. And you know, you see kind of all these things like a waterfall of light and these things, and you end up kind of potentially meeting your soul or these beings. And I had this profound experience with a divine feminine presence, and she was there just radiating resplendent love. And she kind of said, you know, like, you're safe and I'm with you, and like, love is all around you, you never have to worry about this. And then I kind of became aware of mom's friend going, you need to you need to say something, where are you, what's happening? and, and she starts kind of bringing me back into my body. And I'd been in such an altered state of consciousness that when I came back into my body, I was like shaking uncontrollably for about an hour. And mom, like my mom's friend was kind of like, and mom came in and was like, oh my God, you know, what's happened? This is not supposed to have happened. And, but it was obviously it was exactly what was supposed to happen, because, you know, it was this beautiful moment for me. And so she kind of like swaddled me in blankets and brought these other crystals that were more grounding, and, you know, gave me this. So that was kind of a memorable one. But then there's been kind of many more on the path, you know, at different points, because I think it's really a spiral. And so you're always, you know, you never arrive. You kind of are always kind of continuing along this spiral. So even doing my research, you know, so many years later, you know, I was living in the Himalayas for part of that, and had a big awakening experience connected to what I was studying that brought new consciousness, you know, in a totally different way. Yeah. So I think it's kind of an ongoing adventure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. And as a 9-year-old having that experience, did you not feel, even though she said you're safe, did you feel scared before that, like being shot out of your body and in a different state of
No,
like dimensional?
because because I guess by that point I'd been around that for such a long time, and I'd heard, like, you know, mom was practicing this particular modality where people were having these expanded experiences. So I was really from like I was around that conversation a lot and was really wanted to try it.
Mm,
And so, and when you're in it, like you know, in that, I don't remember being aware that I was not in my body. I just remember being aware of bliss and being aware of love and being aware of this divine feminine kind of being.
mm,
And it wasn't really until I tried to come back into my body at the end, you know, and I came in okay, like I was conscious and awake, and I was back, I was present, but it was almost like the energy was so much that it was more after coming back, it just took me a minute to integrate that experience.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
make sense of it all as a 9-year-old. It's kind of like, what happened? And then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And looking back, like it was quite a gentle experience
Mm,
in many ways, because it was so like the flavor of that whole experience was kind of like compassion and sweetness and love. You know, like sometimes you can have those experiences where you get a bit of a telling off about something, or you know, or you have a big kind of cathartic process, or whereas it was very much an embrace at that time, which
mm.
probably was what I needed in that moment, you know. Yeah, so it was kind of perfect, really.
Yeah, beautiful. And so
Yeah.
do you teach this crystal dreaming? Is it something that
So
you teach as a workshop?
I don't teach that. So what ended up happening was that mom studied that for a really long time and was teaching that, but then she started to realize that you could assist people into such states without using crystals. Not to say that crystals aren't great, and so we do use them sometimes, but the modality that we teach is called Ignite Your Spirit Therapy, and it brings together some elements of that therapy, crystal dreaming, but it also brings together pranic healing and and a lot of elements that have come through mom, as well as some elements of psychology and psychotherapy. So it's quite a well-rounded therapy, so that you've got quite a lot of grounding as well as having these experiences. So we tend to teach that, and what happens is that the focus with this modality is not so much about deliberately sending people into altered states, unless that's useful for the thing that they're working on. But otherwise, there's a whole lot of other kind of medicine in the modality that you can draw on. Yeah, but then we do also have really great friends, and that master who taught us, Raim, he's still teaching. He teaches in Australia, and it's a really excellent modality as well. So it's just, I think it's fabulous that there are so many modalities and so many people, and you can just find something that works for you and lights the spark in your heart, you know.
Mhm.
And just because it works for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And I've experienced the Ignite Your is it Ignite Your Light therapy, or yeah, because this is what
Great.
Amy does. So it's very powerful. And yeah, one day, you know, I think it's something that I would definitely look at because I know how powerful it is. And yeah, it can shift
Yeah.
so much. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd highly recommend booking one if anyone is interested, but or even looking
Yeah.
to get trained in it, because it is very powerful. And so, would you say that your mum's been your teacher? Because obviously, I see that Amy's obviously your teacher and she's mine, and you know, in your kind of lineage that you kind of work on, there's gurus, there's teachers. Would you say this is something that helps to get you more expanded, more on your path when you do have that teacher, or can you just go off it on your own and just wing it maybe?
Oh, great question. I feel like that's such a topical question at this time, because I think people are very reticent sometimes to connect with a guru or a teacher in that way. In my life, having a guru has been monumentally helpful. So for me, yes, mom is one of my gurus. And then I also have a guru in the Himalayas and a guru in the south of India. And each of them serves a different role in my personal journey. And what I love about it is that there's a oneness. So a lot of people look at the guru tradition and they think, oh, the guru is elevated above you and the disciple or the student is lower. But that's not how it kind of is in practice, in a way, because the guru is kind of showing you what's possible in your own consciousness. So there's a phase in the guru disciple relationship where it does feel like the guru is like way beyond, and it still feels like that in many ways at moments. But then there are times where you go into a state of oneness and you just realize, oh, that's the part of self that's already there, that's pulling me up. And so there's a story actually in the Indian tradition about the god Hanuman, and he's a monkey god. And the symbolism of Hanuman is that he's the devotee, he's the devoted one. But in his story, he's the most powerful of all the gods, even though he's the disciple of Ram, who's an embodiment of Vishnu, who's another god. So you wouldn't think that Hanuman, who's the disciple, would be the most powerful, but he's the one who accomplishes the most miracles. And so, why is that? It's because of his devotion, and the humility and the love empowers Hanuman. So Hanuman doesn't know his power until he comes into relationship with Ram. And Ram says things like, can you go and do this? Like, I need this herb to save this person's life. You've got to go and get the herb. And Hanuman goes and, he can't find which herb to take. So he ends up carrying the mountain back to Ram in pure innocence, like not to show his strength or anything, but just in pure humility and devotion. He brings this, like he carries the mountain. And it's the same symbology in Christianity. The faith of a mustard seed, you can, move mountains. Same symbology. And so Hanuman famously says, when I don't know who I am, I serve you, but then I wake up and I realize that you and I are one. And so in my experience with all three of the gurus that I work with closely, when I don't know who I am is, when I'm in separation. But then when when I'm with them and they kind of pull me into a particular state, or now when I teach, I go into that state a lot. There's no separation, and it feels like all guru are one, and and everyone can become a part of that. It's a state of consciousness, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So that's one part. And then on a practical level, particularly in my relationship with mom, like her understanding of the path is so crystal clear, that I find that really, really helpful, because the spiritual path is narrow and slippery, and so you can easily fall off either side of the path, into arrogance or into less than, or into subservience, or into, dissociation or distortion, or all of these things. And you can easily get into your ego, basically. And so having a guru working closely with you can kind of see when you're in your sovereignty, and see when you fall out of that, and kind of go, hey, what's going on here? And give you tools to help polish your own consciousness. So the power is yours to use those tools and to do that. But it's so amazing to have someone there, holding you while you do that, and pulling you up when you fall down. What's your experience been like in that way with teachers?
I mean, I think for me, having somebody that keeps me accountable has been like amazing, and just having somebody who sees me when I don't see myself.
Yes.
Has been a great reflection of, remember who you are, who you are. And especially having someone like Amy, who's so embodied, and obviously she's, Amy very well, and even my other teachers and my coaches, they all like bring different flavors. Like you say, it's like every time I come off a session, it'd be like, there was so many golden nuggets in there.
Yeah.
And my mind could be like, oh, I haven't prepped, or I haven't planned, or do I need another session today? And then I believe I'm like, why do I even have these thoughts? And you know, it is a very slippery slope, and you're so right. And would you say, what are the practices that, if people can take away anything, what are the practices that you do daily that keep you on the path? Because I know how easy it is to get off, and then when you're on, you're like, oh my God, I strayed, right, but I'm on. And when you're
Yeah.
off, you don't really see how far you strayed until you get back on.
It's so true. It's so true. And you can really, yeah. And our vibration really impacts how we experience our reality. So
Mm,
as much as we can do practices that keep our vibration high, our discernment is so much clearer. And that's actually paralleled in physiologically, regarding the nervous system. Like if we go into a dorsal vagal shutdown, for example, where the lower part of the vagus nerve is the most activated part, then we'll shut down, we go into a kind of a depression. And in that state of consciousness, there are certain distortions in how we perceive other people. We're much more likely to believe that we've done something wrong, that people don't like us, that kind of thing when we're in a dorsal vagal shutdown. When we're in a sympathetic activation state, we're much more likely to perceive that people are out to get us. Whereas when we're regulated, we're much more likely to see things accurately. And it's similar with vibration, that, if we go into poor self-esteem, we're much more likely to experience a reality where our poor self-esteem is kind of confirmed to us. But, sometimes you can do a meditation or some pranayama or some mantra, or like I would often give myself a healing if I feel myself going wonky. And then suddenly the whole of reality just feels different, and you're just perceiving everything in a really different way. Yeah. So for me, things like pranayama, so breathing exercises, mantra exercises, working with the chakras. I learned a practice in the Himalayas that's very, very simple that I use all the time. Maybe we could do it together at the end of the interview. Yeah. It's a way into silent meditation, basically. But all of these different things. And then aside from practice, because I think practice is super useful to raise our vibration and access those states where we know who we are. But then there's also, for me, like mom's teachings, we have this seminar series called The Path of Ease and Grace. And it's called The Path of Ease and Grace because the spiritual path isn't always ease and grace, like some people have Kundalini, like we know a friend who had a Kundalini activation that was so strong that the Kundalini came up his spine and he snapped his neck, like,
oh, wow.
Not ease and grace, and that's an uncommon situation. But it's like, how do we wake up our consciousness and expand, with as much smoothness as possible, and integrating things as smoothly into our lives as possible, and so that we're not bypassing and skipping our emotions. And so for me, the tools around how to weave spirituality into your emotions and relationships, and how to understand the spiritual laws of vibration and the law of attraction and karma and all of these things, it changes the way you engage with the problems that come into your life. And so it opens doorways so that those problems are like opportunities to weave a bit more of the truth of your being into the life that you're living, rather than those problems being things that disconnect you from the truth of your being. So part of it's the wisdom and part of it's the practice, I think, for me.
Yeah, beautiful. And there's something that's been coming up for me, like looking at the scales of consciousness, like the map of consciousness. And I don't know, with your research and everything you've learned, how does that link in, and is that accurate, the map of consciousness, or is it multi-layered?
I think it's multi-layered. Are you talking about David Hawkings?
Yeah,
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 the vibrational scales. Yeah, so like with my scientific hat on,
yeah.
there's some things where you go, oh, like how have they come to this, and is it scientifically valid, and how arbitrary is it, and all of these things. So I probably wouldn't ever use that if I have my scientific hat on. But with my spiritual hat on, I would say that it's speaking about something that's true, you know? And so whether the numbers on it are like true truth about what love resonates at or not, I don't think is the main point of that. I think the main point is that, you know, the truth from falsehood becomes clearer when your vibration is higher, you know, and that unconditional love is one of the really high vibrations. And certainly that was borne out in my research, where people had more kind of accurate perception when they went into those states of unconditional love than they did have in a normal state of consciousness. But then they could bring some of that back into their normal state of consciousness and just operate a little bit differently from those experiences.
Yeah, beautiful. And with your research and doing your PhD around unconditional love, how did you approach it? So what did you do, like case studies? Did you have, yeah, how, talk to us about that. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, so the PhD was in psychology, specifically transpersonal psychology, which is the psychology of consciousness and spiritual experience. So a lot of psychology looks at cognition and is not super interested in why do we have anything that is consciousness, you know, what is consciousness, that kind of thing. But there's a multidisciplinary group of sciences that are starting to, you know, well, not starting to, they've been asking those questions. And it's fascinating to me that it's one of the only frontiers in science, or one of the rare frontiers in science, where we really don't know the answer scientifically. And there's a lot of room for consciousness existing beyond the brain, for example, and near-death experiences provide a really rich source of data about, well, how are we explaining people having rich experiences of consciousness when, you know, it seems like people are not having brain activity during those periods of time, for example. So in my research, it was qualitative research. And so we had two studies. In one study, we asked members of the public to write in about experiences that they'd had of unconditional love. So we collected all these written kind of descriptions of experiences and analyzed them and kind of cross-referenced them. And then in the second study, I honed in on a particular type of unconditional love that I'm calling transpersonal unconditional love, and interviewed 6 participants particularly on that. And so there were longer interviews between an hour and 2 hours about, you know, all of what got them into those states and what they experienced and what the benefits were. And so what came out of both of those studies was that it seems like there are probably 2 forms of unconditional love, and that one is more relational, which is similar to what we classically understand love to be, where you require a subject and an object for the love. And, you know, it's one person loving another person, but it's called unconditional love because the sense is that, oh, well, I would love that person regardless of what they do or whether I ever see them again or all of these things. But it's still bound in this subject-object relationship. Whereas the other type of unconditional love that I was looking at is kind of like love that doesn't require a relationship. It doesn't require a subject and an object. And so it's like love as a transcendent state of consciousness, where you feel one with everything, or at least connected to everything, and as if everything is made of love and you are made of love. So it's like to be honest, it was a really beautiful thing to study, because I was just spending all my time reading people's experiences of this incredible thing, and you can kind of feel the energy when you read the experiences.
Yeah.
It was kind of amazing. Yeah. So it was a fascinating thing. And in studying that, I was also aware that there are unconditional, you know, other unconditional positive states like joy and peace that are similarly accessed when we go into a place of extreme connectedness or oneness, as opposed to often experiencing more depression and anxiety when we go into states of extreme disconnection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And would you say, like, you know, the foundations is relationship to other people, to ourselves, to life, and how we are in relationship to everything.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Connectedness, relationship. There's something about the illusion of separation, which I go on about all the time, where, of course, in the physical dimension, it's not an illusion of separation. It's true. Like, I'm over here and you're over there.
Mm.
We are technically physically separate from each other.
Mm.
But there are so many more dimensions of our consciousness, so when you come into the energy body, when I see clients, I see them on Zoom like Amy does, and we can read people's energy from the other side of the world. So we're not as bound in our separate selves in our energy body as we are in our physical bodies. And then, mentally, you can walk into a hospital and kind of pick up on the thoughts and emotions. You can get a bit down sometimes when you go into a certain space. You kind of feel that, and we leak a little bit in that way. We pick up the Maya, or the mass consciousness, quite easily. It's much more porous. And then there's the soul dimension, where we're much more connected. And then there's this kind of infinite dimension of oneness, which is probably back to your question about what I perceive the divine to be. That would probably be it. And that's pervading all these other dimensions and animating them. But we can't feel it because our focus is on the separate part. And so what happens in spiritual practice is you kind of get turned inside out, and you become aware of the spiritual part that's hiding inside of the physical part. So you come into connection, exactly. And the more we come into connection with everything, like for me, the more I become connected to the divine, the more I see that inside of every person. So it's much easier to have compassion for people, because it's like, oh, that's a part of self over there who's in that pickle that's making them behave like this. If I was in that pickle, I'd probably behave like that too. They don't need rejection and judgment. They probably need some understanding for the pickle that they're in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does open up so much more compassion, doesn't it? The more that's what I've been seeing, and patience as well.
Yeah.
For sure. And so you were going to say something?
Well, and presence as well, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, presence is key. And it's so easy to, because of society, to be pulled out of present moment. And, the gold really is in the present moment. And that is one of the hardest things I find, to stay so present, where I will literally be like, I'm going to set my day to be so present today. And then 2 minutes later, or even less than that, 30 seconds, I'm going for my phone. And it's like,
Right.
and it's like, no, I'm really just trying to bring yourself back. Or even, working and doing admin work and staying as focused as you can. It's like, I don't know about you, like having to kind of G yourself up, or really set yourself up to go, right, come on, focus time, like put your phone away, and you've got to give yourself a good talking to, because our mind is just, we're so easily distracted because of stimulus. And and what part of that is pulling us away, would you say? People call it the ego. What would you call it?
Yeah, the ego, for sure. I think the nervous system to some extent, and our brain chemistry, like we're kind of living in, I guess, an attention economy. So all of the marketing is trying to get our attention and pull it into where people can make money from our attention. And so there's so much psychology in that, and so much neuroscience in, like our brains are designed to operate in a particular way for our survival. And so the dopaminergic pathways and things, like, they're designed for us to go towards the things that bring reward. But now the things that bring reward are things that don't actually bring safety or health or sustenance. They're things that are like bright, shiny lights. And so that's tricky. And that, I guess, that does plug into the ego. And what I tend to find is that any type of addictive tendency. So whether it's for food or for my phone, or even towards, like, neediness in relationships or something like that, if I immerse myself in spiritual retreat, or I spend a lot of time in one of the ashrams that I visit, what happens is that the love and the nourishment is so extreme, and I'm so surrounded and embraced by that nourishment, that those addictive patterns just kind of drop off whilst I'm in that nourishment. And then I come back to like life in London, where nobody really makes eye contact with each other that much. And the relationship, there's not so much relationship, there's not so much connection. You have to work a lot harder spiritually to stay connected, because it's not coming to you like it is on a retreat or in an ashram. Then sometimes these things start to creep back in of the phone or the thing, because I think we're seeking connection, and our egos will take any way of getting connection. So we have to kind of redirect our ego to get connection in a way that's really healthy and nourishing, rather than in a way that is depleting and exhausting.
Yeah, and that takes practice, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's creating these healthy habits, and that's exactly what my journey's been like. It's from really just letting go of the things that aren't serving me, and fasting's been a big part of that. And I notice, like, when I fast, I'm so much more connected, and things, those desires, or overeating, whatever it is, even though I eat predominantly raw vegan, I'm very healthy. I can still overeat on raw vegan dates or whatever, or even is my Achilles, really. But yeah, they just drop away, they just go. And that you've elevated your consciousness, and when you've dropped a bit, because your environment will reflect that back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so interactive, right?
Yeah. And so, in terms of the people we surround ourselves with, because you talked about your teachers, and even just being in relationship, if we're sort of spending our time with people that have not got our best interest, that's going to start infiltrating us, isn't it? And we're going to start maybe mirroring their patterns. So, would you say we just need to be mindful of where we spend the people we spend our time with, and are they lifting us up or pulling us down?
Yeah. Something that I have been exploring recently is, in meditation, when you really are in the sweet spot of meditation, there's something that happens where you're not in your thoughts anymore. You're in your presence. So it's like a tangible sense of connection with yourself, with something alive and profound inside of you that feels like truth. And what I've noticed is that if, for example, someone says, oh, let's hang out today, and I, like, my mind goes, oh yeah, that sounds fun, but my truth goes, oh, like, there's just subtle shifts in that sense of wholeness and truth inside. Then there's some kind of depletion. So it might be that person consciously has my best interests at heart, but that unconsciously they don't. Or I think everybody's doing their best, right? Everybody is doing their best. Mom says everyone's doing their best, otherwise they would do better. And so sometimes people's best is crap, is the other part of what she says. But it's not. They don't have to be evil for our truth to go, actually, that's not nourishing, that's not expansive, that's not true for me. And what I find even more interesting about this method of knowing, like, because when I try to work it out with my brain, I get myself into pretzels about, like, should I do it? Should I not? Like, it's all polarity, and then you get confused, and, but if you come from the center, what happens is that sometimes that someone is in a mess, or they're gonna try to manipulate you, or they're gonna try to pull energy from you, or they're gonna try to put you down, or but your truth says it's right to go and be with them on this occasion. Then you're gonna go in really resourced, and it could be that by being in your presence and meeting them where they're at and speaking your truth, you pull your relationship with them into a different place, and you might get something sweeter from them than you otherwise would have. Yeah, so it's kind of, for me, it's a nuanced one about that. And it's more about the isness than about anything. I want to come from the inside out in making those decisions rather than reacting to something that seems like it's coming from the outside.
It's really just listening to your intuition, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And what other ways for people watching do you connect in and listen to your intuition? How can that show up? Because, you know, there's many different ways where even signs can show up. How do you like know? And obviously you're very like intuitive, but for those that are just starting out and just like try to figure out like, is this my intuition? Is this my mind like telling me to do something that I'm not sure? And they're in that to decision, the choice point, and can't make, and that creates suffering of the mind when you can't make that decision as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to struggle a lot with that. And what I found is that the mind feels tinny. When it's the mind telling you something, it has like a tone that's a bit like ding, as opposed to when your presence tells you something, it kind of goes like it's a really different feeling in your body. It's a really different. So if, sometimes on a spiritual path, and it's really interesting that this is a really common phenomenon, that sometimes people can go into a high state of meditation, and an idea comes in while they're in that high state of meditation, and it makes them really excited, and it's almost like a kind of a mania. And then they go and do that thing and it doesn't work, and they go, why didn't that work? And they felt like because they were in a high state and the idea came in a high state, it must be true. But sometimes what can happen is, if we haven't cleaned our chakras enough, then that high energy can hit something that's in our personality and make it really big, because there's a lot of energy coming in. So it feels really exciting and like, whoa, I've got to go do this thing. But it's actually not like truth in that big way. It's something to do with our personalities, kind of desires and attachments. And so for me, the thing is about doing as much purification as we can. And then when the truth comes in, like it just has this kind of softness. It's like the quiet voice within that doesn't need to yell, because it's just really resonant. And so what I find is it takes a little while to learn to listen to that, and to distinguish. It's like different accents or different vocal tones in your own head, and you start to be able to pick what's what, and you can start to kind of test it out, like, oh, this feels like truth, let's see, so that you get your own language of intuition really good for you, because it's going to be also different for different people.
Yeah, and I really resonate with that. I've like got ideas, I've got so excited, wanted to run away with it, and like, well, why? And then you doubt yourself. Well, I got the intuitive pull to do it, like my soul taught, and it's like, so that makes real sense. It's not every idea is meant for you, and I'm learning that.
Yeah, it's cool. Hey, there's an interesting book about that. It's called Stealing Fire, and it's kind of from a neurological perspective about how expansive altered states of consciousness, they call them states of ecstasis, how they impact us, and what kinds of things can happen, and the slips that we can have, because overall they're great for us, those expansive altered states. And then there are a couple of things that can happen that can just, that slippery, narrow path that's the spiritual path. And you don't want to get sucked off into that, because there's so much beauty, but it's safer and more resonant, if you can pick what's going to pull you off that path and stay on the track. Yeah.
So much learning to be done, so much feeling into it as well, and discerning, and how would you say, and how would you say the chakras play a part in all of this? And do you feel like the chakras are changing? Are they shifting the more conscious we become, and the more conscious the planet's becoming? Are they changing their structure, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like personally, our chakras definitely change as our consciousness changes. I have rumblings inside of me of some articles to write about that, in terms of, because, you know, scientifically, we don't know what the unconscious is. You know, we don't, there's not like a part of the brain necessarily that is like, oh, that's where the unconscious is. But as a healer, and, you know, bear in mind that I learned about chakras when I was 8. So for me, they're as tangible as the table. And so I can feel in someone's chakras, you know, emotions and thoughts and, you know, beliefs that have been in their unconscious, you know, holding them back in certain ways. And so I think that our chakras are kind of what stores our consciousness, and then also what shapes how our consciousness reacts in day-to-day life to the stimulus that we face. So then if you change your chakras, it completely changes how you're likely to react to something, because it changes kind of the shape of your consciousness anatomy, if that makes sense. So when you meet a really enlightened being, you know, you can kind of feel it, like when you're around them, you feel kind of uplifted, and you don't really know why, you just feel good near them. And then if you scan their chakras, probably they're going to be bigger and more full of light than the average bear. And similarly, if you're around someone, it's like, oh, then they're probably gonna have quite a lot going on in their energy body. So even if they're not saying negative things, you kind of feel a negative pull just by their presence. So for me, I guess this is a huge passion of like, wow, you know, people are getting around, influencing their lives with a part of their anatomy they don't even know about. You know, and so for me, this is why the work that Mom and I are doing around, you know, teaching about the energy centers and chakras and how to heal them, how to uplift them, and the other laws of the non-physical parts of who we are. Because otherwise, you know, it might be like having a Ferrari but no license, you know, and there's all this energy and all this power, and you're just like driving it into stuff and making a big mess. Whereas you could get your license and learn how to drive this beautiful thing that you've been given. Yeah, and create your consciousness how you want it to be, and create your life how you want it to be.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And yeah, if you're open to doing the healing you were saying before with
Yeah, sure.
yeah, get a little taste of that. And so yeah, oh my God, I mean, I could ask you so many more questions. I've got so many like notes to talk about, but we might have to do a part 2 and just like take all of your knowledge from your brain and share it, because I'm learning so much, and yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, let me know how
Get
it
quite
works. What's your
excited. Talk a
process?
lot with this as well. So thank you for thank you for indulging that.
No, no problem at all.
Great.
What's the process?
So yes. So okay, so this practice is yeah, from my teacher in the Himalayas. And you start with I'll just explain it first so that people can follow along more easily. But you start with a process of breath. So usually with alternate nostril breath, you might have done in yoga, you're going in through one nostril, out through the other, then in through that one and out. But in this one, you're going around. So you go in through one nostril, out through the other, then in through the same nostril and out 5 times, and then 5 times in the other way, and then 5 times in a neutral way. So I'll guide it so that we connect to the energy first before we even start doing that, because it just makes it a bit stronger. So just if we close our eyes and just taking a deep breath, because it's all been very exciting. I know for me, I feel that I need to just take a deep breath and sending love into yourself and sending love to the divine that lives inside, the divine that lives inside of every being and everything. And if the word divine doesn't resonate with you, it's like that consciousness that is beyond the separate self, the transpersonal consciousness. And just sending love with each breath. Imagine you can pull in love from the universe around you and send it into the consciousness, the pure consciousness that lives inside. Great. And then sending love upward through the top of your head into the heavens, and breathing in from above, blazing white light, Imagine that it comes from the highest point you can imagine in the heavens. Breathing down from above, down through the crown of your head, down through the body, and releasing through the base of the spine and the feet, releasing down into the earth. And then breathing up from the earth, that rich earth energy, just breathing it up through the body, through the feet, through the base, and releasing up through the crown of the head. So we're just kind of opening our energy body here, connecting, breathing in from above and below simultaneously, and expanding through your heart center. And as we breathe, as we do these breathing exercises, we're going to use the mantra So Hum in our heads. So Hum means I am. And so you think about the divine as you know it best, and love it best, and trust it the most. And just sending love to that. So it could be that you have a guru that is kind of like your doorway into the oneness. Could be that for you, it is someone like Lord Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary, Durga. Whatever for you is the divine, the ocean, nature, unconditional love. And just picture whatever that is in front of you so that you can connect with that, and so that you can pull divine energy or universal energy of love in through that relationship. So we're going to start by breathing in through the right nostril and out through the left 5 times. And the awareness is on breathing in divine energy on the in-breath So. And on the out-breath Hum, intend to release anything that binds your consciousness through the left nostril and through your body. So breathing in through the right, Hum out through the left. You can let the breath be nice and slow. However it feels best for you in your own rhythm. And then swapping over in your own time, in through the left So, and out through the right Hum. So breathing in the love from the universe and breathing out whatever binds you. And then when you're ready, just putting your hand down so you have kind of neutral nostrils, and breathing in So, and out Hum all over the body. So the mantra is just in your mind, breathing in the love and the light from the universe, and releasing anything that binds you. 5 of these breaths. You might feel your awareness gently going to your Ajna chakra, just between and above your eyebrows. And then starting to alter the breath so that you're breathing in the love and the light on the in-breath, and on the out-breath, you're offering your love into the universe. And we'll do 10 breaths like this. Your breath might really slow down during this. Just allow it to be whatever it is. And allow your consciousness to drift. If you drift into meditation and you lose the Soham, that's okay. So like you're breathing with the universe, breathing in that love and that bliss. And on the out breath, offering your love back into the oneness. Being aware of the rich energy that we have opened into in this practice. So if we had more time, we could just kind of drift into meditation, just staying with the breath, breathing with the divine in that way. But for now, imagine that you can just think of your projects, the things that you're most excited about in your life. And imagine that some of this energy that we've accessed goes into those projects. Energy of creativity and empowerment and light and inspiration and love. And just empowering them. And we give thanks to the divine that has assisted us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then traditionally, Babaji would get us to rub our hands together and just place our palms over our eyes and face, and then just gently kind of run the hands over the body as if you're kind of spreading the blessings of the practice over your physical body. And then you can kind of wriggle your fingers and toes and anything else that needs wriggling, and open your eyes. Namaste. How does that feel to you, Sarah?
Oh my God, I'm so blissed out in such a short amount of time. That was amazing.
Great.
That was so good. And God, if you start your day like this is where we can really create our own energy instead of, using the energy. Like, because I don't know if for you, what you're saying to it's head on, like a lot of us aren't creating our own energy. It's kind of like we're siphoning it outside of us.
Yeah.
And then it can mean like it impacts our belief systems and the stories that we tell ourselves, and we're not like taking our power back by creating our own like prana.
Yeah, it's like we're kind of passengers on the Maya, or the kind of the matrix of our society, which has a lot of stories that bring us down, rather than, if you start your day by putting your consciousness deliberately where you want it to be, you become kind of the driver rather than the passenger, I guess, in your own consciousness. And then what you're able to create is very different.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So tip for everybody, start your day doing this, because I mean, I was yawning a lot and a lot of energy was moving out of my body. And so what's happening there then with that? Because I know people don't always yawn, but I yawn when I know energy's moving.
Yeah, lots of people do that. A lot of people yawn, and some people burp when energy moves as well. It's a really common thing. Um, and then some people don't have any of that going on, but yeah, it usually just means that there's old energy just clearing out and making way for new energy to come in. So it's perfect, really. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I felt things shifting, and that was such like short amount of time as well. So, give yourself that by doing that and start your day, and your life will change if you do it consistently, I tell you.
Yeah, and
Um,
I used to really struggle with silent meditation because we use a lot of mantra and singing and, active kind of directed meditation. And so when Baba taught this, I was amazed by how, like, with the breathing and then the mantra, suddenly there just would be so much bliss. And I would just kind of go into silent meditation. And then sometimes answers to questions would come, or that kind of thing, but you just would be there, as you say, like so fast. Yeah.
yeah, there's so many tools and techniques that can really help us on this journey, and find what works for you, because there'll be something out there that will.
Yeah.
Whether you try this and try it for at least, try it for a few days, try it at least for 7 days, and you'll soon know. And yeah, and thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I would love to have you back on, because I've got so many more questions for you. Where can people find you if they want to work with you, get a healing, or I know you do retreats, and you've got one coming up for India, which unfortunately I can't attend, but
Oh,
maybe the next one. But yeah, yeah, share.
Yeah, I have a website that's coming in the next kind of 2 weeks or so, which will have all of that on, which will be gayatrik.com. I'm just renovating it at the moment, post PhD. It just, everything feels different. Um, and so you'd be able to find the details of the retreat and how to book a session through there. And then also the broader organization, shantimission.org, is the broader organization. And so the classes that I'm running soon are advertised through Shanti Mission. So we've got a class coming up called Emotional Liberation, which is it's kind of weaving psychology and spirituality to do with attachment styles and looking after our vulnerable emotional self, particularly in relationships, so that we can connect healthily with other people because we're connected healthily with ourselves. So we're using some psychological tools, but we're also using connection with the divine to resource ourselves in that. So again, it's weaving the divine into daily life. And then Shakti Dogar and I are running a class online November, December called Laws of the Soul, which is a really exciting class about, how does it all work? And so if you're into that kind of thing, that's really exciting. So all of that's at shantimission.org and offered online. And then also Instagram, Gayatri K108, yeah, is a good way to connect as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what that path of the soul, I'm so all over that. That is things that I love to learn about. So yeah, I'll be looking into that for sure.
Yeah,
It's
it's
been
making me
amazing.
tickle.
Yeah, I know. Oh God, I'm so, this amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everybody watching has got some inspiration. Like, the awareness has expanded, and you've taken something from this conversation today. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Please do like, subscribe, and comment. So we can share this great information out to more people. But yeah, thank you for being here. Have a blessed day, everybody.